So please welcome Andrew, Jen, and Graham to the stage.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, everyone. Yeah, as Sam said, I'm an independent advisor. Previously, I worked Freesat and Everyone TV as well as Paramount. But enough about me, the sort of two people we're much more interested in. I'm assuming everyone knows you in the room, but just in case, if you could introduce yourselves.
Perfect. I am, well, first of all, hello everybody, and thank you very much for having us here today. I think it's an exciting event and very proud to be here and meeting and chatting to everybody here today. So I'm Jennifer Batty. I head up the content for Samsung TV Plus here in Europe, and we will also be rolling out in the Middle East towards the end of Q2 this year. We are in 16 countries currently across Europe, and we are embedded. So if you buy a Samsung television, you will have Samsung TV Plus. If you buy a mobile phone, you will have Samsung TV Plus. And if you buy a tablet, you'll have Samsung TV Plus. And Samsung is the #1 manufacturer of televisions, smart TVs, for the last 18 years. So we have a very significant market share, which is great. It means that we have a built-in audience because they're there for the incredible quality televisions that we manufacture. So it gives us a great home to have fabulous content that we get from people like ITV.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's almost unparalleled reach. Yeah.
It is a great reach. You know, it is still early days within the connected TV world, but it is a really interesting reach, and it's really exciting to be, you know, to own the screen in the homes.
Excellent, thank you. And Graham, would you like to introduce?
Yep, sure. So I'm Graham Haigh. I run global digital partnerships for ITV Studios, global partnerships. And that entails us managing all of our fast and direct consumer business globally, alongside our sort of social channels business with people like YouTube and such like. On the far side specifically, you know, we've been growing that business, you know, with great partners like Samsung over the past couple of years. We're now, I can stand here and tell you we've got 15 channel brands live around the world. I think in 15 different markets, something like 75 different channel feeds. So, you know, it's a real key focus for us, and obviously, you know, as a studio, we've got sort of 60 plus independent or owned labels that we get a fantastic array of content from, scripted, non-scripted formats, etc. So, you know, it's really a different way in which we can start to monetize that content.
Excellent, thank you. So kind of starting to sort of think from like the past over the last, it's been sort of 2 years since Hell's Kitchen launched on Samsung TV Plus. I think it'd be really interesting to kind of hear your thoughts around how the market has developed and whether anything has actually taken you by surprise over the last 2 years. Graham, if we start with you and then we'll come to you, Jen, if that's okay.
Yeah, 2 years. I mean, I definitely looked younger 2 years ago. So I think fast is a world of, I guess, I think few people on both sides of the sort of ocean, and you know, a lot of work, but you know, it's really interesting, great fun. I think how it's changed for us, and probably the industry more general, is that it's just got more premium. So the layer of premiumness has elevated itself, you know, significantly, you know, which is great for all parties, I think, because, you know, rather than having channels and perhaps content that was probably barely known in this room, you've now got, you know, the likes of ourselves and our sort of peers in that sort of, you know, BBC, etc., and then obviously the bigger studios, Sky, etc. So, you know, that is probably one of the key evolvements. And for ITV specifically, you know, we were probably 2 years ago looking at it quite opportunistically. We've now got a really clear strategy around how we want to exploit, you know, our channel brands that have, you know, enough sort of weight in the eyes of a consumer to constitute a single brand, like, you know, the likes of Hell's Kitchen you've mentioned, Graham Norton, etc. Alongside some genre channels where we've got a mixture of, you know, different IP that sit under a crime banner or a drama banner. So that's probably the key area of involvement, and then how the channels look and feel, which I think is going to become increasingly important, because, you know, to rewind 2 years, they looked a bit average. You know, there's a bit of content, an ad, a promo, maybe a countdown clock, and I think that's just not the bar anymore. You know, the bar is sort of, it's not ITV1 linear channel, but it's somewhere in between where you need to really be able to deliver a good consumer experience, so that your channels are sticky and, you know, people want to put ads around them ultimately.
Yeah. Jen, same question to you.
I think just building on from what Graham was saying, I think it is really true. I think if you look back to when FAST first launched, or sort of when we started our first partnership with ITV Studios, it's changed and evolved. The content is so much stronger today than it was then.
Yep.
I think previously it was, people were like, let's just get some content, let's put it together, throw on, here's a 24-hour channel and let's see what happens. Now we have, just a couple of weeks ago, we launched the Graham Norton channel exclusively on Samsung TV Plus here in the UK, rolled it out also in Sweden and the Netherlands, and is coming up in Germany very soon. Feel the end of this month?
Yeah.
Where we localize it in a lot of, so we'll localize it in Germany. But 2 years ago, I don't think we would have had the opportunity to have something like that with Graham Norton. I think the evolution has changed so much that the talent are now going, oh, wait a minute, this is another revenue stream for us. Plus, it's another way for us to get our content and our face and our message out there, which is really exciting. I think besides the quality that's changed, I think also discoverability. So when you turn on the TV, it is a lot easier to find the FAST channel EPG. I think sort of 2-3 years ago, slightly more complicated. But now, you go home, you turn your television on, and I would guess probably, I don't want to say 80%, but maybe 80%, 90% of the audience here, you don't always know which EPG you're in.
Oh, yes.
And because the quality has increased so much, and we have so many really strong broadcast partners within there, it's just the experience of viewing the content has tripled.
Yeah, it feels that my experience of Samsung Fast, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be a Samsung TV owner, like it feels like it has got so much better, and it feels like it is seamless, as you say, with traditional linear television. I think you mentioned Graham Norton then. Is it perhaps too early to start to see if this is a success story? How is it landing?
We're super happy. We were just talking about this beforehand. Here in the UK, it's launched as a top 10 channel, which is really exciting. I think Graham Norton is such a personality, and his talk shows are so entertaining, and the quality of the caliber of the guests that he has is second to none. I mean, it's just incredible. And the stories that they tell, I don't know how he gets them to do this. But so I think people were waiting for the Graham Norton channel, and we're really excited. The viewing minutes are good, the engagement is good, revenue, all these things are ticking the box. It's a great viewing experience. We've done a lot with ITV for the launch of it, which is really nice, which is why we like to have strategic partners that we can sort of, rather than just launch the channel and see what happens, where we can do more together to build awareness.
I think it's also been, just to echo some of that, but it's really a big internal success story for us as well, because it involved a big investment financially. It's sort of over seven-figure investment just to actually make those episodes available, because there's lots of clearance and music challenges with it. And also working with CTV, who are the producer of the show, they've been super engaged. They did all of that work. They really worked with us and with Samsung, both Jen's team, but also the ads team, to think about how we take this to market and launch it, almost like a sort of, I'd say proper linear channel, but old school. So it was the
old school linear channel.
Let's go there. But it's a huge amount of consumer press as well, which is unheard of, I think, for a fast channel launch.
Yeah,
as well as the
it must be the first one to actually sort of garner that level of hype. And it's interesting to hear how you're sort of cross-promoting and working together on that sort of promotion. And is this the sort of first channel where you've done that, or on some of the other sort of older fast channels did you sort of work together?
I think I'd say to the scale and sort of level, and that's then delivered the sort of output, both in terms of whether it's press or such like, or the actual performance of the channel. I think that's probably the biggest and best sort of version of a launch that we've done together, and hopefully we can continue to elevate that.
Watch this space. But I think this also sort of speaks to the quality of the content that's coming on with Samsung and the partners that we're working with, because the more that we can work together to sort of amplify the voice of what is coming onto Samsung TV Plus, the stronger the audience will be that are tuning in, which means that you're going to have more eyeballs, more user engagement, more revenue, all of the things that we're looking to all the boxes that we want to tick. But I think that, again, because the content is so incredibly strong, studios like ITV are like, okay, how do we do more together to make this a success?
It feels like it can be a win-win for both of you.
Well, it's that circle, isn't it? Because once you unlock a bit of that content, then the monetization, you can see, well, it's a bit, you know, and then it becomes easier then for us to think, well, actually, there's other content that we perhaps wouldn't have considered a year or 2 years ago, or even perhaps now, but we might consider in the future is you know, the right home for it is on a fast channel.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think in terms of audiences, who do you see fast channels attracting? And do you think they're capable of reaching some of the younger audiences that are leaving traditional linear television?
Yeah, I think within Samsung, you know, we have content that's available as a fast channel. So it's there, you come home, you turn your TV on, it's 24 hours a day. It's easy for you to experience. And then we also do have content that's available video on demand. So that that is a little bit more geared towards a slightly younger audience that want to watch the content when they want to watch it. But it's really interesting, I think, from a Samsung perspective, is that, you know, our audience is everybody who buys a device, which, you know, it's not geared to an older demographic. It is geared to, you know, the tech is very, it's high tech and it's advanced. It's very much geared to a slightly younger audience. And I know we look at our viewers across Europe, and, you know, that sort of prime younger audience is a very high percent, significant high percent of our audience, which is really exciting that we're able to reach them.
Yeah, that's great. And then Graham, do you kind of see it as, from your point of view?
So I think how I'd look at it is that, look, we know the audience for our shows. So take up River Monsters, we know that that's a sort of a show that appeals to generally a slightly more male audience, a little bit older. Obviously fishing as a passion is going to play a part in that. So we know that, and I think there's no reason to think that those audience wouldn't be different in the fast world, because like you say, you know, Samsung have millions and millions of devices around the world, so they've got a broad user base from which to tap into. I think from a data perspective, we I think would probably want to work with the likes of Samsung to get a little bit more sort of clarity on who's watching the channels, you know, just so that we can then use that information to curate our channels more effectively, which works for all parties, and think about, you know, what other channels that we could put into the Samsung ecosystem that works for the audience.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I think sort of going back to kind of sort of the beginning of the session, we sort of did a little bit of a thinking around like the last 2 years. Oh, my mic's gone funny, my apologies. How would you say that the change in your thinking, Graham, has kind of impacted your content strategy over the last couple of years?
I think it just goes back to us. Like if I'd have sat here 2 years ago, I think the opportunities would have been, let's just think about the content that is an easy lift, that we know is sort of going to work in that environment, and typically it's, you know, not something that's super serialized. You know, so a really long-running serialized drama, like something like Lost, for example. That's a tricky one in the fast world, but the sort of procedural crime drama works very well, and a thing in the non-scripted space that's very much, you can sort of pick it up at any point in the show, and game shows also, you know, work very effectively. I think, I guess, what's changed in our world is that we're now thinking, I guess, more proactively about, well, what things do we want to put into fast? You know, versus, you know, we have to obviously consider a fast channel versus perhaps potentially licensing that content. And there's, I guess, a more equitable seat at the table in certain markets that fast is potentially a better route, you know, or it can be a very complementary route to our licensing business. So I think it feels like we've primarily moved, you know, quite a long way in that regard, and also just general people's understanding of what it is and what it could deliver beyond the money. You know, there are insights from a data point of view that we just don't get when we're licensing content. So there's other things that are perhaps not necessarily financial, but that are really valuable for us as a traditional sort of distribution business.
You can almost see what brands or what type of content are still resonating out with audiences.
And we can feed that back to our producers, who are super inquisitive about all this type of thing. You know, and that also can feed into our broader studios world, where if we know, you know, like I'll go back and use River Monsters again, but like if that works really well, it's not a show that's being commissioned anymore, but maybe we can kickstart a recommissioning conversation with a producer because of the sort of popularity of a show in that format. Yeah,
and that would almost go back to linear, like traditional linear, and then work its way through.
Yeah, or even no, just go straight into it. In time, maybe not now, but certainly in time. You know, as I said, it's that show specifically is not being commissioned anymore, but we've seen it work super effectively in the fast space. So if we can get more volume, at a slightly different production scale that works for us as a sort of integrated studio producer business.
Yeah.
You know, we get the production revenue coming in, but also, you know, the revenue that we generate through our partnerships in FAST.
Jen, you touched a little bit earlier about how sort of premium content like ITV coming to the platform sort of maybe help change consumer attitudes. Could you sort of expand on that and maybe sort of talk through how, if ITV sort of lead in this market, has also helped bring other sort of studios and broadcasters to the FAST market?
Very much. I think over the last few years, you know, our partnership with ITV, also we have other partnerships in other territories. You know, I think I'll use DAZN Fast Plus in Germany, where we're bringing live football matches.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're the first fast channel to launch live football from some of the strongest leagues in Europe,
Yep.
which that was completely unheard of. But it really was, and no pun intended, sort of. You know, it was a game changer for us with that partnership. We also have, you know, in Spain, we have a partnership with RTVE where they're, you know, the equivalent of our BBC, and we do a retransmission of their channels.
Oh, wow.
In Italy, we do a retransmission of the Warner Brothers Discovery channels. We have very strong partnerships that are building and growing, you know, and a lot of this, you know, 3 years ago, we would not be saying that we're going to have live football on a FAST platform.
Yep.
But it is the support and the partnerships that we have with the studios and the broadcasters. Slowly, baby steps, we're getting there, and the content is just, it's incredible from that. And it is doing things like Graham Norton. Other people take note and go, oh, wait a second, if they're willing to go back, clear the music rights, which is very expensive.
That is very
Very
hard.
expensive, and it's hard work.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and it's difficult to convince people to do this. That others now say, oh, okay, well, wait a second. What about these other shows that we have that maybe we've only ever thought about them as being licensed?
Yep.
They're now coming to us. I think you'll continue to see this grow over the next few years. I think you'll see things that will premiere first on FAST. Previously, that would not have happened.
No.
I think we'll see commissioning in FAST. I think there's a lot of really exciting things that'll come around, and it all starts from partnerships. You know, a few years ago with Hell's Kitchen.
I mean, amazing. I mean, we've got a couple of minutes left. I think it would be really nice to kind of touch on and build on what you were just talking through there, Jen. Kind of what do you think is going to happen to FAST over the next 2 to 3 years? If you get your glass ball out and kind of where is this market going to be in sort of the near future to sort of mid-term?
I think it's, you know, as I said, I think it's really exciting with the content that's coming now. I think it's just going to continue to get stronger. We'll see more firsts within the FAST world that we didn't expect. And that's within sort of the next 12 to 18 months. You know, 24 to 36 months, I don't want to take a gamble there, because it'll just become, you know, this will just become the more normalized way that you view content. Because people will come home, turn on their device, and it'll just be a more smooth transition, easier transition. The content will be stronger and better. And we'll all be hopefully sleeping longer nights.
Well, fingers crossed to that. Graham, what would you say?
Yeah, not too dissimilar, to be honest. I think it will continue as it grows. You know, obviously the US is at a different phase in terms of its growth. It's already a sizable market, and Europe is probably a year or two behind there. But you know, it will continue to attract a sort of higher quality of content. I think there are other things, you know, in terms of how it will evolve, whether it's sort of use of AI from our point of view in terms of how we schedule the channels, or in terms of, you know, product placement or such like, you know, within the channels. I think there's, you know, undoubtedly there'll be a regulatory piece in the UK and in most of Europe where we as content owners and channel owners, and I guess Samsung also are channel operators as well as a platform, we'll need to give that some thought, you know, which is, it's not foreign to us, but it's not, you know, a world that we're used to operating in. So that's a sort of more of a consideration. And I think also it's about how we can start to work. You know, we've got a great partnership with Samsung. I think it's how do we elevate that and also start to take it beyond the content. You know, we've worked very closely on Graham Norton with the ad sales teams. How do we sort of help them to sell our channels more effectively? How do we utilise the data that is, you know, there's a lot of data available, but how do we use that more effectively together to, as I said, really nail down our future strategy and ensure that it's one that is, you know, we can sit and plan our strategy in a sort of room and we might think it's great, but actually, there's no, if Jen says to me, no, absolutely not, that's not going to, you know, so we need to do it together with partners. You know, that's super important.
And I think that's kind of come through from the both of you. It feels like it's growing together and working through and making sure that that partnership can actually bring kind of both boats up.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, we've almost done this perfectly to time, which
it's like we rehearsed.
is excellent. Oh, it was totally done. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll be around for a little bit afterwards for people to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Thank you very much. If everyone can...
Thank you.